time.
Hey, Elon Musk just became the first person to be worth $600 billion.
That's more than the GDP of most countries.
This guy is so ahead of everybody and nobody even realizes it because, and this is something that I've talked about a lot, that I've talked about and we've talked about a lot, is he is single-handedly, simultaneously solving the biggest issue in front of everybody's eyes, and everyone's going to have to pay him to play in the AI game. And that is the energy crisis. Compute power will be in space. Electricity generation will be in space. And this guy literally is building the next infrastructure.
One thing that goes through my mind, technologically speaking anyway, is the use of nuclear technology, so nuclear fission, and the way in which it's so effectively used and efficiently used.
You could produce, you can manufacture, you could do almost anything you want in orbit, in space, in a factory, and it becomes so much more efficient because you're not beholden to the limitations that you have here with building a terrestrial structure, right? I mean, you could build a lab, rotate it, have it orbit around the Earth, get free energy from solar. You get a better, everything happens, solar panels in space. So you're able to get better solar connectivity. You're able to get better conversion, more efficiency, no gravity, and you can produce nuclear energy, clean, safe nuclear energy in space, and then produce that down to the planet and manufacture in space, no waste, none of these things. Right, exactly. I don't see human beings living in Mars and all that type of stuff before I see colonization just in orbit, right? Like, for example, building massive superstructures that orbit the Earth that you could live in those
We've already proven that works because of the space station. They can live out there.
Exactly. I think AI is going to kill the climate change green movement because it's going to figure out a way to create clean, safe nuclear energy production.
We don't need to see things on air that don't need to be seen. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think more important is that if Erica and Candace decide to get together to have a personal conversation offline, I'm all for that, because for me, anybody who's killed, whether it's the person who shot up Brown University the other day, that person needs to be brought to justice. Who assassinated Charlie Kirk, that person needs to be brought to justice. And I'm just about truth and justice, man. And however that needs to happen, doesn't have to be done publicly.
Why is it? Why are they on the defensive? Why are they even defensive about this? The fact that you're defensive about something like this, it's just telling.
It's a red flag.
You shouldn't have to be. You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't have to be defensive about it. And you're right. I mean, you would think that there would be solidarity, but there isn't solidarity. Why is it such a mess?
We don't need to see things on air that don't need to be seen. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think more important is that if Erica and Candace decide to get together to have a personal conversation offline, I'm all for that, because for me, anybody who's killed, whether it's the person who shot up Brown University the other day, that person needs to be brought to justice. Who assassinated Charlie Kirk, that person needs to be brought to justice. And I'm just about truth and justice, man. And however that needs to happen, doesn't have to be done publicly.
Why is it? Why are they on the defensive? Why are they even defensive about this? The fact that you're defensive about something like this, it's just telling.
It's a red flag.
You shouldn't have to be. You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't have to be defensive about it. And you're right. I mean, you would think that there would be solidarity, but there isn't solidarity. Why is it such a mess?
Yeah.
First and foremost, I am not a proponent of the war on drugs. Never have, never will be, just not. I think it's a waste of government resources. I think it's a waste of time. So the government is the only drug dealer allowed. Only the government can be a drug dealer. That's the war on drugs. That's how I feel about it. From my perspective, the government just doesn't want anyone else to deal drugs except for them. we should be boat striking the crap out of everybody's. I think what his words were almost.
Trump is the president. And the other thing is that Trump's words, again, they have an impact on what people do. And he understands that.
Is it then Trump's way of toying with Maduro to get him to declare some type of conflict? 13,000 a month?
Right.
How do you survive off of that?
When you look at housing, transportation, food,
family of four,
medical,
husband, wife, son, daughter. How do you survive?
Right. So it's crazy. And
how do you buy a house?
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Things where no one will ever understand why you have to reboot the computer. Everything you never changed anything. You didn't do nothing to it, but for some reason it just seems to reboot it. It's kind of almost like when you need to put a kid in timeout.
Need a reset,
or you need a nap, right?
Yeah,
that's why baby boomers need to take more naps, because we need to reset them.
You and baby boomers, man. It only took you 30 seconds this time.
Hey, Elon Musk just became the first person to be worth $600 billion.
That's more than the GDP of most countries. That is.
You want to know something interesting?
That's crazy.
In addition to that, everybody was all that nonsense. A month or so ago about his pay package, about getting his pay package approved, right? And then all of a sudden, all that hemming and hawing about it, and then they finally. You can hear me, okay, right?
I can hear you just fine.
All right, cool. They finally approved it, right? And it's like, oh, this is going to get him to be the world's richest man because he's going to be worth $1 trillion because of the stock or
SpaceX, the IPO. Oh no!
But now this guy's doing SpaceX IPO worth $1.5 trillion, which is going to be more than the Aramco IPO, and that alone will make it worth it was like a few days ago they said it was going to make it worth like $950 billion, but now as a result of his net worth going to 6, he's going to be worth 1.5. He's going to be worth over $1 trillion when SpaceX goes IPO. But when you think about it, Len, it makes so much sense because this guy is so ahead of everybody and nobody even realizes it because, and this is something that I've talked about a lot, that I've talked about and we've talked about a lot, is he is single-handedly, simultaneously solving the biggest issue in front of everybody's eyes, and everyone's going to have to pay him to play in the AI game. And that is the energy crisis. We just simply cannot produce enough electricity, right? And we're starting to see that. We've also talked about that, about how people's electricity bills are increasing, or electricity utility costs because of the data center usage. But what Elon Musk is talking about is we're going to offload this all into space. Compute power will be in space. Electricity generation will be in space. And this guy literally is building the next infrastructure. Like if you would have looked at 100 years ago, 50 years ago, wealthy people owned sports teams, stadiums, energy transportation infrastructure, and NASCAR tracks, and now today it's not anything that the infrastructure is off planet. And this guy has all the companies around it to do it. XAI, SpaceX, Tesla, all of them, you name them, Boring, all of them to combine, Neuralink. It's just insanity. But hey, man, stranger things are happening.
He's lived 6 lives already in one life. And one of his lives is more extraordinary than 99% of the others. And just from a business creation, technological innovation standpoint, he's one of one. That's a fact.
So just interesting because I saw that today before we hopped on here, and I'm like going, damn, this guy just, he's just killing everybody. He's killing everybody, right? And what's interesting too is that a lot of these companies like Oracle and all these guys, they're negative free cash flow as a result of all the money they're spending on build out, which further goes to point with Michael Berry's, where he's not backing down at all. And he's putting the pressure on for that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next several months. To see, most people think there's going to be a housing crisis tied to that as well, or a financial crisis going to be tied to housing again as well, just simply because of the way that the price ratio and the income ratio look.
We've talked a little bit about that. I'm interested to hear your perspective about how space can be used as a way to solve the energy crisis and things like that. Because like one thing that goes through my mind, technologically speaking anyway, is the use of nuclear technology. So nuclear fission and the way in which it's so effectively used and efficiently used. Whereas in space, you have different dynamics. And so how do you see space as an avenue to be able to harness electricity that we can use here on Earth?
I mean, I don't know why more R&D and more research. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe I just don't know. I mean, but maybe I just don't know why that's not a center point for all solving most of the problems that we deal with today. The fact remains is that we just can't harness enough energy, obviously, to where we're at right now. Fossil fuels don't do it. Regulations won't do it. But in regards to space is fascinating to me simply because space allows for obviously it comes with its challenges, right? Because you're in space or you're in a vacuum. But to me, it comes with infinite solutions because you could produce, you can manufacture, you could do almost anything you want in orbit, in space, in a factory. And it becomes so much more efficient because you're not beholden to the limitations that you have here with building a terrestrial structure, right? I mean, you could build a lab, rotate it, have it orbit around the Earth, get free energy from solar. You get a better, everything happens, solar panels in space. So you're able to get better solar connectivity. You're able to get better conversion, more efficiency, no gravity, and you can produce nuclear energy, clean, safe nuclear energy in space, and then produce that down to the planet and manufacture in space, no waste, none of these things. So that's exactly the direction we're going in. And that's what you see happening in front of our eyes with what Elon Musk is doing.
See, to me, some of the concerns that I have about that, I think, okay, to your point, I think so much more research and development needs to happen.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I think the possibilities are endless, but I also think there are inherent risks that are also as vast because we're dealing with so many unknowns. We don't understand the different chemical compositions and how they interact in space versus on Earth. Right. So like when you look at nuclear technology and how it interacts on Earth, you've got nitrogen and you've got hydrogen and you've got oxygen that's operating at its specific ratios here on Earth in the atmosphere versus out in space. We could take the same technologies we know, but out there, it could have a completely different interaction or reaction, and countless lives could be lost because of it. So I think we've got to be very conscientious of those little things because they could become very big things quickly. And, and then also once you have the ability to produce and manufacture in space, being able to harness that energy and get it efficiently and effectively back to Earth is also another challenge because, okay, let's say we can produce electricity at, a fraction of the cost per unit. But then what happens to the cost of that unit when you've got to fly instruments out there, all of the gas that's expended, all of the potential, energy that's expelled, the different costs for the materials to build those, engines and all of that. When it's all said and done, net, how much cheaper will it be? Like, for example, the idea of going to Mars sounds grandiose and it sounds forward thinking, but to me, it seems like a much more efficient use of time and energy to just make the Earth we live on better, just because it's just so much infinitely more pleasant to live here. When you look at the temperature changes on Mars, some parts of the day it's hundreds of degrees, and in other parts of the days it's negative 100. So you got this vast temperature change in one day of 400 degrees. That's not hospitable. Whereas you could take a smaller percentage of output to make Earth better and more efficient, and as opposed to trying to change Mars. So those are just some thoughts that are going through my head. Obviously the hype around the SpaceX being $1 trillion company. I've seen some figures that say more close to 800 million, but I think by the time the IPO comes out in 2026, it'll be right around that $1 trillion mark. So very, very interesting stuff though.
I think it's a great opportunity to invest. I mean, I'd be buying SpaceX.
No doubt.
I'm
in line already, bro.
I'm like, it's almost like set aside a tithe every month. You're right. Because every single, when you look at how that gets packaged together and how he ties all those different entities together, it really is cornering the market.
Dollar cost average before they even go public. It's in your savings account.
Right. Right. Exactly. I don't see human beings living in Mars and all that type of stuff before I see colonization just in orbit, right? Like, for example, building massive superstructures that orbit the Earth that you could live in those
We've already proven that works because of the space station. They can live out there.
Exactly. So think within 100 years, you're going to have a good portion of the population living in low Earth orbit, or whatever you call it, right? It's just orbiting Earth in an arcology setup where it's just this massive hospitable, Earth, but you think it is, and you have this view of Earth because you're orbiting it. So that's definitely probably, I would say, would be first. But
you think so? Okay.
Nuclear energy is the only solution that we have on Earth. No hydro, no solar, none of this stuff's going to get you to the finish line of what we need. And I think AI is going to kill the climate change green movement, because it's going to figure out a way to create clean, safe nuclear energy production. And when you can get a nuclear energy, because there's a lot of companies that are on the forefront of that, one is specifically where they're going to be able to drop ship a nuclear reactor the size of a Chevy Suburban and power an entire city. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So stuff like that is going to start to scale so fast. We're just like, why would we invest in windmills and all of these other types of technologies that are so outdated when you can literally have a nuclear reactor the size of a Chevy Suburban replace all the electricity function of all the windmills and all the solar panels in most cases. Because that's really nuclear power. We're talking about the sun, right? So we're talking about reproducing the same effects that the sun, fission, fusion. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, no more energy problem. Energy problem is solved. Clean, safe, reliable, clean energy, and nobody will have to pay for electricity anymore. So that kind of even lends more down to that pathway of what's everyone going to do when AI replaces everybody's jobs? Well, there won't want to be bills anymore because everything's going to be free because everything is so cheaply made. Once that happens, the cost of production becomes so low because the cost of energy is so low. And that's what frightens a lot of oligarchies, or I guess powers that be, or whatever you could say, is because they now lose their ability to produce, right? With what they're used to being produced, that the guard is going to change. So just perspective on that. But I am curious, Led, because there is a lot of stuff going on right now. We've talked about this quite some time now. But I'm curious to know, because the deadline is like what? The TPUSA event, isn't it like today or like
it's today? 17th? It's the 15th. It was supposed to take place.
It's today.
I don't know if you heard or not that
I may be on the late train.
Well, no, nothing happened publicly, but there were rumblings about Candace Owens and Erica Kirk having an offline private conversation to air
I did hear that.
Their grievances. Yeah. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is supposed to happen today, if it hasn't already. And I hope that they do get together. I have a couple of reasons why I hope that, but what are your thoughts about what's going on? You had Erica Kirk at the town hall on CBS, and you've heard different people interview her, and people react to how she's portraying herself and how she's positioning herself individually, and also how she's interacting with TPUSA organizationally. What's the latest on your mind about that whole saga?
So this is something that's really been captivating for me, just in the background or the sidelines for me. And I don't really like to form an opinion based on my gut emotion reaction. Like, when the cliche, sleep on it. Mm-hmm. It really is a cliche, but it really is truth, because for some reason things happen when you sleep on it. Right. But, I don't normally like to form an opinion about something until I've actually really like felt it unemotionally and seen it. And I guess I'm just more in a season of my life where I don't really believe words as much as I believe just actions, or what people's faces say and what people's actions do, which I think I find so far more rewarding when you're having a conversation or just interacting, rather than just being being at a high function language wise, meaning a very eloquent speak or very eloquent words. Because to me, it's like, I love that. I love language, but you got to really pay attention to people's faces, right? And their expressions and their actions. And that's really what gives a lot of truth to what people are saying and what they believe. But you and I have talked about this. We've talked about this offline. We've discussed it. And to me, it just seems weird. And at the beginning, I'm just like, dude, there's just something weird about TPUSA now. There's just something weird about how they handled everything. It's just weird. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, but it just is weird. You just get that weird feeling. You just kind of sit back and you just kind of watch. And anyway, let me see how things go. Let's see how this goes out. And to me, the whole rollout of how everything happened with them and how scripted it was and how rehearsed feeling it was. And then how Erica just ascended so fast and just so whoop, right? Like just like a CEO retiring and the new CEO coming in. It just was very bizarre the way it all went down. And now to see Candace jump on it like the way she has, and all the allegations that are out there, and hearing them and watching the way TPUSA has responded, how they've postured, and then seeing that and not really paying attention to it at all on social media, just listening to them. You see a lot of people now that are like, there was this one I was watching the other day, and I don't want to smile or laugh about it, but where it's like, watch Erica Kirk's face change during this interview, or watch her when asked a question about, the allegations that Candace is making. And she just goes from that normal smile that she has to just all of a sudden, bam, like red zone. You're like, why would you react that way? Why would you react in such a non-controlled, rather this, why would that be your response? Right? Why wouldn't you just have a clean, intellectual, solid, concrete, stoic response? Because that's the character, or that's the narrative, or whatever you want to describe, that they are just saying they're coming from, right? TPUSA is saying we're stoic. Erica saying we're stoic. Everyone's saying we're stoic, we're button up, we're tight, because that was Charlie's position all the time, right? But then you look at that and you go, why did you get such a reaction? Why didn't you just get a clean, intellectual, logical, pragmatic response based on your merits and your morals and your ethics and your values, right? Why get this emotional reaction to, and I think it was on like CNN or Fox or something like that. I can't remember. I think it was Fox. I think she was getting interviewed on Fox.
She was being interviewed by, it was a.
So you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying. Why such an erratic emotional response, reaction to, instead of a clean, simple, easy, pragmatic reply? Mm-hmm. Why this way? So, there you go. And she's not a hard interviewer. And Fox is friendly to
Erica. Yeah,
and Fox is friendly territory. That's like the home court advantage right there.
Yeah.
So to me, it just seems like weird. And let me tell you this, I just don't trust it.
Okay.
You just don't trust it. It's very sour to me, and it almost looks too scripted and too rehearsed and just too much there. And I get we got to go on and soldier on, but I don't know how I would respond in that type of situation. I don't, because I'm not in that type of situation, but I do know for sure that I would be very different than where I am right now. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, cool, I get there's stuff in the shadows and we can't say, right, Len? But to me, it's like, look, if you come to me, Len, and you're saying, hey, so-and-so said this about you, Chris, I'd say, stop, hold on a second, wait, hold on, mm-hmm. Hold on, wait, Len, hold on. Let's get so-and-so in the room, or let's get so-and-so on the phone. So all three of us are in on this, because I want to know their response and their reaction to your allegations at the same time, real time, mm-hmm. as you accusing it, because it's the only way I'm ever going to get 100% the real deal, the real story, and not some type of one-sided response or reply. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's very strange. And if they were them, I'd call it all out and say, let's do it all right now. No restrictions. Why can't we have her on a live stream? Why did they want her to be live? And if I was Candace, I wouldn't be doing it live anyways. Because I don't trust them. Because I don't want to say what I want to say, but you probably understand what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And, first, I think it's always... It should go without saying that our condolences, of course, goes out to a widow who lost her husband, and husband whose children will grow up without their biological father, whose life was cut short at the age of 31. That goes without saying. It should, at least. What's weird about everything, Chris, is that the types of the response, because, there are people around me that are close that have lost people unexpectedly. And the way they interact in public and the way they mourn and the process they use to mourn, there's similar patterns, different. Some people, move forward without crying, and other people, crumble and they just can't function. But what's common amongst them is that there is a very visceral mourning period that takes place. And when I look at TPUSA, I just look at how they just decided to just come out and do this world tour so quickly. And then you had people that, he's irreplaceable. So you have other people that are trying to fill that gap, but there's a big, gigantic vacuum in that organization. And not only that, all of the swirling accusations that have been going all about is troubling. For example, Tyler Robinson is in court, maybe even as we speak right now. And there are so many pieces of evidence that suggest that if he did it, that he definitely wasn't a lone actor. And there's more compelling evidence to suggest that he didn't do it. And so when you look at somebody that was a friend of her husband, now I'm talking about Erica and Candace specifically. Candace was a friend of her husband's. They were business partners. They traveled around different parts of the world together. They text back and forth with each other. And they knew each other before he even met his wife. So they have a long-standing relationship. So if my spouse's good friend and business partner was turning over every stone to find out who killed my spouse, I would not in any way view that person as an adversary. I would not in any way tell people that are trying to get me to condemn that person to do it. Because my spouse has been assassinated publicly, and somebody saying, I will not stop at anything. I won't rest until we find out the person's killer. That's my best friend, not my enemy, not my adversary. So that's very weird. Now, as I've mentioned before, and I'll probably say it again, there have been, the way in which Candace has gone about it and some of the things that she said in the past hasn't always been something that I've aligned with both personally, politically, philosophically, and all of that. But as it relates to this case specifically, while she may be talking about clandestine operations and Egyptian operations and the French and Mossad and all of these other things, I don't see that as a problem. I look at it as a stone that needs to be turned over. And and I believe that she's perfectly rational, that if some evidence comes up to support that her claim is wrong, I think she would publicly say, look, I saw these flight logs. These flight logs turned out to be nothing. It's a big fat nothing burger. That's on me. But I did find this out, and this led to the conviction of Charlie's assassin. All of those other allegations were worth it. And for TPUSA to, one, set an impossible deadline for them to converse on live, either in person or via live stream, and to set out this tweet at midnight to call for her to respond within 24 hours. All of these things are suggesting that something's off, because that's not normal. When somebody's trying to investigate your boss, your husband, your great friend, they're on my side. They're on the right team. We're all fighting for the same thing, but they don't seem to be fighting for that. And when you, as an organization, TPUSA, fights to say, we trust what's going on with the FBI, when it's led by a person who doesn't have the credentials to effectively lead an investigation, there's some problems there. And I just think that it stinks. And lastly, I'll say this. We don't need to see things on air that don't need to be seen. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think more important is that if Erica and Candace decide to get together to have a personal conversation offline, I'm all for that. Because for me, anybody who's killed, whether it's the person who shot up Brown University the other day, that person needs to be brought to justice. Who assassinated Charlie Kirk, that person needs to be brought to justice. And I'm just about truth and justice, man. And however that needs to happen, doesn't have to be done publicly.
Yeah, I think it's, again, you're exactly right with that. Why is it so, why are they on the defensive? Why are they even defensive about this? The fact that you're defensive about something like this, it's just telling.
It's a red flag.
You shouldn't have to be. You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't have to be defensive about it. And you're right. I mean, you would think that there would be solidarity, but there isn't solidarity. Why is it such a mess? It should just be so cut and dry. Look, if Tyler Robinson was the man that did it, the guy who did it, whoever you want to call it, then it would be solid. It would be lock, stock, and barrel, right? Now, I do think still I'm in that camp where I'm like, yeah, he probably did it, and oh my gosh, this gets blown out. But again, it's a bias. It's a bias, right? Where it's like, eventually you're just like, okay, cool. I'm believing the narrative. I'm believing what you're saying. I'm believing what looks to be on the surface is that Tyler Robinson was, a child that was troubled in certain ways and grew up in a conservative family or whatever you want to call it, and became involved with, whatever groups you want to say whether he was involved in that was not of the norm. He was involved in alt fringe groups, right? And that was that. And he became frustrated and grabbed a rifle and exercised his agency that he had and shot a man in public, cold blood daylight, execution style with a bolt action rifle. That in itself seems very simple and very easy to understand, because it is very simple and easy to understand. And you could sit there and go, okay, cool, this is what happened. Because in your heart, you would believe that that's the simplest way that it could happen. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good thing and it's a heartful thing, but that is the most believable thing, because who could plan this massive long-term 10, 15, 20-year conspiracy, right?
I agree. Sure.
It just seems so complicated.
So far-fetched. Yeah.
It's so far-fetched where it's like, nah. But then it's almost like we live in this world today where things just keep getting exposed, where you're just like, damn, the far-fetched shit that sounds fake really is real. And the simple stuff that should be real is fake. Because we're just being tricked. Because there is this bias that you have where when you like or you trust something, you're willing to excuse away the doubts. You're willing to excuse away the red flags until all of a sudden it just becomes so much that you just can't ignore it anymore. And I think a lot of people are at that point where they were in a position where I was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where I was like, dude, Len, come on. It is what it is, dude. This is what happened, right? Where you're now going, wait a minute. Like, why is it so weird then?
Yeah.
Why is it so weird? It's just,
so
why is it
many
so weird?
You know, situations and pieces of evidence that just don't make sense. You know, a guy coming up and confessing that he did it just to act as a diversion.
And the guy has a history of doing that too.
Yeah, he was at the Boston Marathon. Like, what is that? And then the flash bang that you see from another place, and just the way in which the entry wound happened. And you know, if it was a 30-06, it would have pretty much blown his head off. So, and then, you know, the weird movements from the security officer next to him, then them coming and removing the camera, them sweeping out the crime scene. Like, you can go on and on and on about different weird occurrences at that singular event that just points to the fact that there's some type of cover up. I'm totally open to any possibility. Again, my goal and my only outcome is to find out the truth. Don't sweep some fake lie under the rug. Turn every stone, ask every question, and then let the truth, you know, set you free. And that's really what it is. Speaking of truth, looking at what's going on with Venezuela. Usually we don't talk about international topics, man, but you know, you certainly wanted to have this conversation, and I had a chance to see the video you sent me from Fox News about your best friend, President Biden, and so I wanted to get your take on what Fox News said about what Biden said. I do have some thoughts about that. And then also just how are you feeling about how this, you know, this drug traffic, bombing, Venezuela threat, in this whole scenario internationally, and how the Trump administration in general and Hegseth in particular is handling all of this. What are your thoughts about everything?
All right. I sent that video to you, and I don't know why. It was like a gift from heaven. Like it came like packaged in the most expensive wrapping paper with it came with a big, beautiful bow on it, just for you. It came with a massive gold and red bow that said Trump on it. It said, here you go. No, really. To be more serious on it, look.
Send me that link so we can put it in the editorial so folks will know what you're talking about.
I'll know exactly what you're talking about.
Let's go after the drug lords where they live with an international strike force. There must be no safe haven for these narco-terrorists, and they must know it.
Oh my, have things changed in the Democrat Party? Now they prefer a softer approach.
If these boats are full of drugs and narco traffickers, why not interdict them? Show to the country, show to the world the drugs and the terrorists, the narco terrorists.
And give them some hot chocolate too. Great idea. Let's hire them all lawyers as well. Now, you see how Trump has them all trapped here? He wants to make America great again. They want to make drug running safe again.
Look, I don't want to make light of anyone's life, whether they're a good person or a bad person. I'm not the creator, I'm not God, so I don't want to make light of that. But there's a lot that you just asked me, but
Yeah.
First and foremost, I am not a proponent of the war on drugs. Never have, never will be, just not. I think it's a waste of government resources. I think it's a waste of time. And I think it's counterproductive. And I think that the government just screams hypocrisy in that, why do we make this stuff illegal when the government has needle programs and methadone clinics? Like, the government pays for areas in California. Well, they don't pay, you pay. The taxpayers pay, the people that pay California state tax pay for places where people can go and get needles. I don't want to use the word free. Needles paid for and subsidized by you that don't live in those areas in California, so that you can go shoot dope for free. Not free, on consignment, whatever. I don't even know the right word, Len. Help me out here. You're a linguistic more than I am. What word is that called? What is it? There's got to be a word for that. I mean, it has to have been described in the human language by now, where the government is literally paying people to go shoot up and do drugs. Mm-hmm. Then, by the other hand of it, this hand over here is saying, here, have all the drugs you want, right? And then on this other hand, it's going, let me beat the living crap out of anybody who's trying to bring drugs into this country because only we're allowed to. Which then further goes to the fact that the FDA sleeps under the same sheets next to the government. So the government is the only drug dealer allowed. Only the government can be a drug dealer. That's the war on drugs. That's how I feel about it. From my perspective, the government just doesn't want anyone else to deal drugs except for them. That's it.
Okay.
They're the only ones allowed to deal the drugs. What are the only ones allowed.
What are your thoughts about just the whole bombing and all of those of supposed drug vessels?
Yeah. So I had to throw that out there. Now, whether or not they're drug vessels, I'm going to believe they are. Because, I mean, this is kind of almost like, what is Trump and Hegseth, the 15-year or 10-year-old kid with the magnifying glass burning ants just for the hell of it? Like, we're just going to shoot rockets up in the air, blow the shit out of boats in the water because we think there's drug people there? Yes, there probably are. There probably are people smuggling drugs. Do I think it's a show of, you know what it reminds me of? Something out of a Harrison Ford movie from the 90s, like Clear and Present Danger or something like that, right? Like, do I think this has been done before? Do I think it was sensational? Yes. Look, at the beginning of the year when Trump first got in office, this was like advertised. It was awesome. People enjoyed it. It was great. Right now, people are like, going, wait a minute, we're really bombing the crap out of boats for real. Yes. I don't think anybody, I think anybody who's opposed to it would not be opposed to it if their daughter died of an OD. Because that changes someone's perception of the bomb hitting the boat, right? Because I don't want those drugs to come here. What I have an issue is that I think it's more for sensationalism. And I think it also has to do with the fact that it's a show of force of going, hey, look, Maduro, this could be coming to a neighborhood near you very soon if you don't cooperate, right? Like, this is kind of a show of like, hey, we're going to pester you. But that lady, I can't remember her name. You probably know her name. I don't know why. She just won the Peace Prize, Nobel Peace Prize. They just airlifted her out. Like, right? She just like, it was like a whole covert operation. They got her, where's she at? Like the Netherlands right now or something, right?
It was Netherlands, I think.
Yeah. So they flew her out, and she's like, she was on a 10-year like surveillance program or something like that. Here's the thing that scares me the most. And this is what scares me so much about anything, right? Mm-hmm. She's sitting there and she's talking, right? She's giving the interview. And she goes, well, yeah, if I go back, I know I could be subject to arrest under that government.
Maria Corina Machado, yeah.
Cachado, thanks. Mm-hmm. Do you hear that, right, Len? Mm-hmm. Under that government, I could be arrested. Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing that scares me the most because who is the government? And what right do they have to surveil her? Mm-hmm. Because she opposes Maduro?
Right.
That country's in shambles. That country's a desolate wasteland when it's one of the wealthiest countries in the world because there's a communist, socialist, dictator, whatever you want to call him. Mm-hmm. Like when everybody says Trump's a fascist, they should just say, you don't know who Nicolas Maduro is?
Right.
Excuse me, you don't know what fascism is. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what fascism is. So I think that I think that the war on drugs is baloney. And I think that Maduro needs to be removed. I know we don't talk about, international things, but I think that what Trump is doing with the whole war on the drugs thing, end it now. But I don't disagree with it because I don't. They should do it. It's national security at this point. It will be an issue for everyone who doesn't like the boat strikes. It'll be an issue for them until a dirty bomb comes in on one of them. Or a nuclear bomb. Because that's what's next. That's what's next. Or a boat comes in and hits shore and there's 2,500 attack drones in it and they all get launched in Houston and blow up the freaking half the city. Because that's what's coming next.
Okay, I think
that's what's coming next. You don't think our adversaries will use that as a channel to get to us? 100% they will. That's why I think it's important. And going back to it, Len, because I had to bring it up because nobody likes what Trump's doing, but our good friend Joe Biden, because the internet doesn't forget, we should be boat striking the crap out of everybody's, I think what his words were almost.
Yes. And at that point, this is a very good way for me to chime in because one of the things you said early in our conversation today is, hey, words are great, but it's the actions that really matter.
Yes, it is.
And he did use those words, but he didn't bomb the crap out of what is it, 3 vessels now? Like,
but he didn't have the authority to, that's why. If he had it.
But okay, he had the capacity to actually do it. And if you look at him at his picture,
how? He was a senator at the time, right? Or he doesn't have
I was going to say, if you look at his picture, he was definitely not the president when he said that. So
no, for sure. He's like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Probably 20 years ago.
He's been known as a person historically to pop off at the mouth. He's that guy. Now, I'm not excusing.
What makes him different from Trump? Pops off too.
Okay, the difference is that when he popped off and said that he was a senator, it's a big difference. That is a big difference. Trump is the president. And the other thing is that Trump's words, again, they have an impact on what people do. And he understands that. And so, the video that you sent me from Fox News bringing up receipts from 20 years ago is so disingenuous. Man, it's so disingenuous. It's laughable, bro. Now, I definitely want to put that up here, when we go through the editing phase and all that stuff, so people can see how preposterous their argument is, senator versus president. And then you have other Democrats that say, yeah, we should bomb them. I agree that the whole premise behind blowing up a vessel in international waters is wrong, regardless of the side of the political aisle that says it. But they actually did it. They actually blew people up. And when they had a near miss one time and they didn't finish the job, they dropped another bomb on them. It's just
so let me ask you this.
Ridiculous how that happened.
Let me ask you this. Is it then Trump's way of toying with Maduro to get him to declare some type of conflict?
Wow. So killing somebody else as a strategic ploy, that is even more problematic.
Okay.
Even more problematic.
Have worse things been done in the history of the history of the world, right?
That doesn't make it right, though. That doesn't make it right.
I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm not saying it makes it right at all, but I'm just saying, is that his way, by means of self-defense, he's doing this to go, hey, bro, like, what are you going to do?
But there's so many other ways that he could go about it and sell it. For example, you can use what happened with Venezuela as it relates to the history of dictatorship and say, look, we need to have democracy there. I disagree with that premise, but that's been done many, many times over. Most wars are saying, hey, we're coming in to bring freedom to the people, and people buy hook, line, and sinker because they don't read, they don't know. And so they just believe what they're being told. The other thing is Venezuela experienced probably one of the worst sets of hyperinflation in recent history. So you could say, look, we're going in to provide.
Why hyperinflation?
I mean, because of failed policies, because of bad, a poorly run country, all of those things. But that happened under Hugo Chavez. And so Maduro came in after him. So that was already in process. And so when you had the devaluation of their currency, that very thing could happen here, by the way. The only thing that's really stopping it is the fact that the fiat dollar is the global currency. I mean, we're on that freight train right now. So we got to be very careful about speaking ill of them, because it can very well happen here. Do I think it'll happen? Not necessarily, but could it happen? Absolutely. History has shown us that. So to answer your question, there are many reasons that the United States could use as the facade of going in there. To me, I don't think that it's our business to worry about the dealings of what's going on in Venezuela. And then the final point that I'll make is, you talked before about the fact that, okay, boats could come here and, bring nuclear weaponry and stuff like that. Well, that's one of the reasons why we have the Coast Guard. And that's one of the reasons why, if there's any issues, we have different submarines and cargo. We have a naval fleet that the world has never seen before that can easily be deployed. And trust me, the people who understand military and strategy know very clearly that we have the world's most destructive arsenal traveling in the waters, lurking beneath. Nobody's dumb enough to try to have anything come. And you don't need a drone strike to stop that. They've got stuff in the waters that's way more powerful than a drone dropping a little bomb on one of those ships coming here. There's so many other ways for people to be hurt that those drone strikes are absolutely unnecessary.
Well, we have definitely built a muscle in exercising drone strikes and understanding how to use drones, because we had a lot of gym time under the Obama administration.
Oh, that's good. That's good, Chris.
So that's I take it you were not a fan of Obama's drone strikes.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, when you have innocent families that were killed, and that happens way too many times. I am not in favor of this idea of collateral damage. I am less in favor of intentional killings. And so I think when you looked at Obama, there was a lot of collateral damage, and I'm not for that. And when you look at Trump, in this particular case, it was intentional. I'm even less for that. So yeah, I'm not for any of that. So let's move on to a lighter topic, man. I'm tired of talking about people getting assassinated and getting killed, man. Let's move over to some economic topics. And
Fed lowered the rate by 25 basis points.
Say that one more time.
The Fed just lowered the rate last week.
I remember. That's right. That's right. So that's going to be interesting to see, because there is no real economic rationale for doing it. And so I really, want to get a sense of what that's going to do long term for housing, what that's going to do for inflationary pressures, what that's going to do for the cost of our foods and our utilities and all of that. And in the course of one of our conversations that we had offline, we were talking about different companies and their impact on housing prices, because, my son is actually here from Brooklyn visiting right now. And one of the conversations that we've had in the past is just how much more difficult it is to acquire housing compared to what it was like when I first started out, and I don't know if I told you, but the first house I bought was $69,000. Like that is a fraction of a down payment nowadays, right? Exactly.
You say $69,000 a house. You're talking about a house on the bayou in Louisiana.
Right.
$69,000.
Right. That's dilapidated. This is a fully intact house. It was my first house. I got it with the 3% down. So,
wow.
For $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, I had a house, and and I didn't even actually live in it. I bought it to help my dad out. So my dad lived in it. And then he lived there for 3 or 4 years. And then I sold it and made about 20 grand. And then I used that to buy my second house. And then I just kept building from there. Our kids don't have that chance, man.
First house I bought was $181,000.
Crazy.
In 2001. And I put $17,000 down.
You won't see that anymore.
My mortgage payment was $1,200.
Right? Exactly.
If I had kept that property, yes, if I had kept that property, I would be 5 years away from paying it off.
If you didn't refinance or any of that stuff, yeah,
if I just would have held on to it, yeah, I kept it. I mean, there was no reason to do it, yeah, because think about that. I remember when I signed that, I went, how am I ever going to pay off a 30-year note?
Right. It's so interesting how things seem in real time, right? I just don't see a future in which people will look back and say, man, I remember that house was so cheap. It was $1 million. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. So I really want to do some digging, Chris, just to dig into your brain a little bit, because you've definitely spent a lot more time than I have on this particular topic. And you were talking about how different large companies are buying up, large amounts of property and how they're repositioning the market and in some ways kind of being market setters as it relates to home prices and all of that. Just for our audience, why don't you enlighten us and show us what you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that when you look on this on the internet and you research it, there are some people that say it's not happening, and then there's a big group of people that say it is happening. And obviously the data is not going to show it. I mean, a lot of times when we see stuff like this, we don't know it until it's actually happened. And the reality is that you do have big institutions that are buying houses. You have big institutions that are buying houses. I don't want to mention any names, but they are big, like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, those guys. And it's become an investment world. And pre to the 2008 market collapse, or 2008, the mortgages, that's exactly why it happened. You were buying credit default swaps, right? And they were using over-leveraged assets and packaging them inside good assets, right? And this is what created the whole problem that Mike Berry went, oh my gosh, here's what's going to happen, and shorted it and became famous. Well, you have institutions not just selling real estate debt, but they're buying it. It's so crazy. If you've seen one of these yet, where you drive by and you see a whole subdivision with like 50, 100, 200 houses in it, and none of them are for sale. They're only for rent. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they go up everywhere in Texas. So you literally drive down the street and you see a subdivision with 50 to 100 houses in it, master plan. Looks like, oh, cool, I'm going to go there. Where's the models? No, they're just for rent. Now renting, right? So you're getting to this point where people are going, okay, how can I afford a house? And then they did the numbers. What was it like? The income to housing ratio. Anybody can Google it. You can look it up and see the difference between the baby boomers and now. And the average baby boomer was like negative $200 every month at the end of it when they were coming up. And then you compare it to the average millennial. The average millennial is like $2,200 negative every month, right? So you could see the stark contrast in the ability to earn money and the cost of goods and services. Yes, everything has gotten infinitely more expensive, but the wage hasn't increased. And then you have all these layoffs that are happening. Who's going to buy all these houses when all these people can't make their mortgage payments, right? And you're starting to see that kind of stuff happen. So the Fed lowers rates. What's going to happen? All the people that own or that have all this money are going to buy these houses, which again creates this artificial look like there's demand. But there is demand. People want to live in a house, but they don't have the money to do it. So who buys the houses? People that have money, that don't live in them, and then they rent them to people who don't have the money to buy them. Because these people are in debt and they don't have savings. Because that's the biggest issue. People will probably figure out how to make the monthly payment. The problem is they don't have the money for the down payment, or they don't have the money to take care of the house when something breaks. Because home ownership is real. When you own a home, you got to pay. When that roofing bill comes, when that AC bill comes, when all those things break, you got to pay for that. Right? And most people go, oh, well, I pay for it when I rent anyways. Yeah, you're right. But you have to pay that rent every month. Otherwise, you leave the house, right? So you're paying for it. But the problem is that most people don't even have the discipline to pay for that stuff outside of a rental payment where it's automatically included. So the stove, like, for example, there's this huge castle for sale in Scotland, on a remote island in Scotland. It's massive. It's huge. And it's only for sale for less than $1 million. It's like 950,000 US. Wow. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But I went, yeah, but you'll go broke trying to maintain the damn thing because you need like 100 people to live there with you to take care of it. Mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. So you've gotten to this point right now where people cannot afford houses anymore because they followed a system. And that system was to go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get into debt, and everything will be great. Well, people have gotten into debt, and now they don't know how to get out of debt, and they can't pay to get out of debt, and they're not getting what they thought they were going to get for the debt. And Tucker Carlson was talking about this the other day, about how this is going to sow the seeds of a revolution because people just get into debt, and you can't do anything anymore now. And that's the system you're in. You're just constantly in debt, and you'll never get out of debt. To which the other person he was sitting with reply was like, that kind of crap won't ever happen in America because too many people own guns. It's just very true. It's very true. There are, revolutions and stuff like that happen in a lot of countries because people don't have the right to bear arms, right? Well, when you have a country that has the right to bear arms, the attitude changes a little differently, I think. But yes, you have large financial institutions buying houses, packaging it in certain ways where it's obscure, so you don't see that. And yeah, that saying, you will own nothing and be happy, I don't know if that comes to America via the normal socialist route. I think it comes through corporate ownership, and everyone will be a slave to the corporation. Socialism 1.0 or communism 1.0 was an individual dictator owned everything, the government owned everything. At this point, it's kind of almost like the government and private corporations got together and figured out a way to become one entity and work with each other and just create this debtors society where people just get in debt and stay in debt and never get out of debt.
So when you look at
now we're starting to see it, or the point where you can't even buy a house anymore unless you, like, for example, if you make less than $250,000 a year in Southern California or California in general, how do you survive?
I don't know.
Because 250,000 puts you in a 22, 24% tax bracket, somewhere like that, or is it, no, puts you into 20. It's higher than that, right? Because I think 198 is 24. Up to 198 is a 24% tax bracket. Anything higher than that, so, and then add on California state tax, like you're paying. What is that? Like close to 50? What is that?
30, somewhere 30, between 34 and 35%.
Almost. Oh no! I mean, because shoot, but what is California state tax? 13% or 12%?
It tax California.
I don't even know what it is, but it's something high like that. It's been a minute for me. So if you're paying, let's say, 25% federal plus another 13%, yeah, 40%, 38%. You're paying almost 40%. So if you're making $250,000 a year and you're paying, let's just say 38% in taxes, bro, like really?
Yeah, it's pretty high.
You're taking home 155. So 155 that's only $13,000 a month, Len. $13,000 a month?
Right.
How do you survive off of that?
Right. When you look at housing, transportation, food,
family of four,
medical,
husband, wife, son, daughter. How do you survive?
Right. So it's crazy. And
how do you buy a house?
That's the point. And so do you think there should be some type of legislation or some type of public backlash about what's happening? Because, like you said, different internet sources, it looks like what's happening with, because you have Blackstone, you have BlackRock, you have State Street, you talk about Vanguard. Okay, so you've got these companies that hide behind this idea that they're not investing in the physical asset, they're buying the real estate investment trust. But the reality is as
they're buying what matters. They're buying what matters, which is the control and the access.
That's exactly right.
And see, the thing is that most of us don't know. Most people, it's like access is expensive. And the asset is expensive. They have that, and the control, and the access. That's what they want. That's what that's what you want. You don't want anything else. That's what they have. So on the surface level, yeah, it looks great. But when you're like what you just said, control of the REIT, control of these things, control of the actual. That's what it is,
right?
And
yeah, and it just
doing it with your 401k,
right?
You're doing it with your 401k.
Yes, and there are real assets that are actually being physically purchased with that. And so, but the thing is it seems, as I was doing my research, that they're able to hide behind one or two layers. It's not like you have an agent of the company saying, I'm going to go buy XYZ house. No, they buy large neighborhoods of homes all at one time, several
Correct.
layers removed. So they're not necessarily directly tied to it individually,
Correct.
and so they can take a real estate investment trust or a REIT and have, lots of different funds that come together to purchase these properties where they can suggest that they're not a part of the transaction. But the reality is that individuals are being priced out of these billion-dollar and multi-billion-dollar funds, asset funds, and then they drive up the prices, and then people are priced out of the housing market. And the other thing is that it seems like there's this strain on building as well. And so when you have a supply issue, you have fewer homes that are being built, and therefore you have fewer people that are getting access to these homes. There's a housing development probably about 3 miles away from my house. And so I sit on a pretty nice size, lot. Like I've got a big backyard. I've got, RV parking, even though I don't have an RV. And I've got, I've got a front yard, and I've got, I'm on a cul-de-sac. So half of the cul-de-sac, I've got shrubbery and stuff like that. So, you could play flag football in my backyard, and you could, have a little soccer game in my front yard. Like these homes over here, the lot that I have, they fit 3 or 4 homes on it where my one house fits. And so you've got, I understand if we live in an urban area like a San Francisco or Los Angeles, where there's lots of people here and there's a need for homes to be built in a compact manner just because it's landlocked. But that's not the case. I live in a suburban neighborhood. And so what it seems to me is as though it's as if different developers go and buy large chunks of land, and they over index for homes and under index for yard space, family spaces, so they can maximize their profits. And I just think that there's just this gradual erosion of the quality of life that's necessary to keep a population stable. Because
what do I need you in your backyard for when I have Apple and Google streaming in your house all the time?
That's right. Exactly. What's the whole purpose of kicking a soccer ball outside when I can go play FIFA soccer on my TV? And I just think
you've seen my house in California before I moved, right? Mm-hmm. It was great, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. But then you look at where I'm at now in Texas, and you're like, it's so much better for my kids here because my kids are hardly even ever in the house.
Right.
I don't police my kids on what they can and can't do with their devices. I don't set screen times. I don't do anything. They manage it all their own. Mm-hmm. All my kids get 4.0 GPAs. My kids go to the soccer field. They can walk to the soccer field from here. They can walk to the park from here. They can go to the lake from here. So you're absolutely right. What do we need? What do you need all that space for when you have people plugged in? And that's exactly one of the biggest reasons why I left where I was and came here, because I was like, I got to have my kids, like, the dopamine reset for them, just the way they need the sunlight, like just, it's not happening today. And all these kids are angry, mad, and it's just, and again, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just such a valid point because you can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you have all of these corporations that are competing with private citizens to purchase property, this idea that home ownership was the American dream, I didn't really buy into that when I started really understanding economics, because business ownership is the American dream, because that's where you get the greatest return on your investment, but also the possibility for those people that aren't entrepreneurial to have the possibility for upward mobility. Like that's really the American dream, is to say, you know what, I at least have a say in how much money I decide to make. That's really what the dream is. And so if I want to work and have the stability of not having to have a business that fails, 100%, I'm a big believer in that. And so the more corporations get involved in this process, in this experiment that we call democracy, the more we start teetering towards instability. And so you talked about the person that was having a conversation with Tucker Carlson saying the reason why we don't have revolution is because we have guns. But there are places where lots of people have guns and they have civil war. And that's equally as problematic, because people within one's borders are being killed and there's no unifying force to fight a common enemy, because you have to jump on one side or the other. And so I just think that we have to be very careful. And as we wrap up this podcast, we also have to be very careful in this whole experiment of public discourse. It's great that you and I, who disagree on so many points politically, can have a setting like this where we can have a free flow of ideas, because we agree with more things than we disagree on. And the things we disagree on, we're never going to convince the other to see the other side, because we have very strongly set philosophies. But I'm willing and open to listening to you and your point of view. And you've also proven to me through your actions that you're willing and open to listen to my point of view, and we can continue to have these conversations. And so, Chris, as we wrap up, man, I just want to say that it's a privilege and it's a pleasure to have these types of conversations, because my hope is that we model what dialogue looks like amongst people who maybe disagree on some of the things, but fundamentally agree on many other things, because we give each other the time and the space to articulate our ideas to each other.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, after you say all of that, you can look at it and go, okay, what's the common denominator? What brings them together? Well, we both enjoy family. We both have kids. We're both married, and commerce. We're both entrepreneurs. So that's America. We like family. We like values. We like Christian values. We like entrepreneurship and business. And outside of that, everything else is just talk and conversation. And how can we make it work? So we're set together on those core principle foundations of family and faith and business, real Christian value. All of these things that come together for us creates this common platform for us. Now, whether or not Trump is going to beat Obama in drone strikes, I don't know yet, but I really hope, because I like my guy to win, I really hope he does. And see, that is the point.
Wait, when you say win, you mean like to do it less, right? Is that what you mean?
I hope he beats him in the drone strikes, so I can say my guy has more drone strikes than yours, but I don't think, man, because your guy's an overachiever.
So it's the wrong fight to win, bro.
Obama is an overachiever. I mean, that guy's an overachiever. He was just like, drone strike here and drone strike there, right? But
and he wants to be the greatest drone striker in the history of the world, right?
Hey, you know what? I would love, and this is coming from somebody who I'm not in that camp at all. I'd love to see Michelle Obama run for president. I think it would be the craziest, most epic thing in the world to see her campaign and to see Obama take second seat to her. I would love to see that happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it'll ever happen, because that guy's got way too much ego to let his wife run for president over him. I don't even think
that's it, bro. I think she just.
What do you think it is?
She has no. I think she saw I believe she saw the underbelly of the political world and said, "You know what, bro? That is not for me. I do not. It's scummy. It's nasty. It's dirty, and I don't want any part of it. I want to be able to look my kids in the eyes and say, you know what? I elected not to participate once I got a glimpse of what it was really about."
Let me ask you this wild card question. This is a wild card question here. Because obviously, there's rumors and there's all that stuff. It's cooled down a little bit, but the divorce rumors between them, or they're not happy with each other rumors. You know what I'm talking about, right? The Obamas?
I've heard of it. They both dispelled it, by the way.
Yeah, and people would dissect their social media. Oh, alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think though that she got a little like upset with him on a couple things or a few things where you're like, you know what I mean? Do you think she did as a wife? Like, do you think she? Because she's a very strong woman, and she's got to take that back position to him. Do you think there's a few times where she kind of went Barack? You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Where you get one of those things from your wife, where you're like, Lynn, like Christopher,
right.
Or Barack. You think there was a couple Barack? Like, I think there were a couple moments, especially towards the end of his presidency, where she kind of like Barack, like what the heck, dude?
Yeah,
because I'll be honest with you,
I think every single president. What'd you say?
I said, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a Barack fan at all, Len, but I had respect for him when he was in office, and I think he did a good job. I think he did. There's a lot of things I don't agree, but I think he did a pretty level, steady job.
He was a decent, common. He was a decent human being. Yes, no doubt about it. Okay, so to answer your question, nah, not at all. I think to answer your question, I think what I truly believe is that every first lady who's ever been in the office saw things, heard things, experienced things, and learned things that they had no clue existed. And I think there was an ugly reality that they all found and saw and had to stay up at night trying to reconcile it. Because I just think when you think about politics and the underhandedness that goes along with it, if you have any level of decency and morality, you probably have experienced things that you never would have thought would happen. And I think there's probably moments that every first lady was like, honey, are you really going to do that? Are you really going to say that? Are you really going to allow that to happen? I see with my own eyes. So I know you even see more than me because I'm not in the briefings with you. I'm not in the Oval Office with you when you talk to all of you. And what I see is problem. And so I don't think he's the first or the last. I think he was the 43rd one. I think he was the 43rd.
I think women are more, in general, men are hardwired more so to just kind of be able to do that with that.
Do with the logic of it, yeah, but the emotion of it, that has a harder toll.
Women are more hardwired to go like, whereas men go, I see what you're saying, and I am too, and I'm not going to show that, but this is we've got to do this. It is what it is. We got to do this. This is the only solution we have. It's the most pragmatic solution we have. And the woman's like, blah, blah, blah. Right, exactly. So, I just thought I'd close at that and ask you that because it just came, and I was like, damn, that's some compelling points. But we could talk about that later. But
for sure,
I appreciate that. Absolutely, Len. As always, phenomenal conversation. And again, we'll see how things wrap up here for the rest of the year. And how things go. And again, like, subscribe if you like the content. We'd love to hear from you as well. Len, any last final thoughts before we close out?
Just continue to be open to what truth actually is. Don't live in echo chambers. So with that being said, take care, everybody. Till next time.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.